Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a team and DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name Elsevier, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all with 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? My name's Bob, and I'm going to be your host for the evening. Welcome to a very fun-size episode of Straight Chilling. This is going to be our first ever mini-cast, what we're going to be calling our mini-cast, in which the Straight Chilling crew is going to be bringing you a more bite-sized version of the show that you know and love. There's so much new genre material being released these days that we just don't have enough time to do a full show on every release. But if one or more of us is able to see something new and we have something we want to say about it, we want to make sure that we get that out to you guys. So we're going to be intermittently releasing these mini casts for your listening pleasure. So today, it's just going to be me talking to you guys about the movie Ma from 2019, directed by Tate Taylor, who also produced and directed and wrote the screenplay for The Help, which is super interesting, especially if you've seen this movie. Nothing like The Help. But the other guys, they weren't able to watch Ma, so I'm going to start off with a spoiler-free conversation about it, and then I'll drop the spoiler warning and get into spoiler territory, since this is a brand new movie. This one is also brought to you by our good friends at Blumhouse, who, most of what they've been doing lately is pretty good, and I'd venture to say that this is pretty good. So the trailer looked pretty interesting. It definitely piqued my interest. It definitely has a kind of a villain that we're not used to seeing in that we have kind of a middle-aged African-American lady who's just like taunting and tormenting these high schoolers. It's sort of kind of a new take on some tropes that maybe we've seen before in other movies. This specific movie here definitely has that classic theme of the kids are paying for the sins of their parents. So kind of the setup for this movie is it's kind of one of those like pranks gone wrong sort of situations. And these poor teens are just trying to find a place to party, and Ma lures them in, and of course she has certain things that she's planning that they are unaware of. Overall, this movie, it's like a really solid thriller. It's definitely kind of what you see in the trailer. If you've seen that, that's more or less what you get, which is actually kind of a problem that I had. I think they gave away too much in the trailer, to be honest. There's 1 or 2 surprises, nothing crazy major. It's not terribly scary, but it's got some solid tension. The acting is pretty convincing. The way that they have these like 16-year-old kids sort of talking and interacting with one another, I think is pretty realistic. Not that I hang out with like 16-year-olds, but the way I imagine present-day 16-year-olds hang out and interact is probably a lot like this. They're vaping and they're on their cell phones and they're cursing so much, and they're just trying to find a place to rage. Octavia Spencer, she's the lead here. She definitely delivers a solid performance. She is certifiably insane, and I think she portrays that better than I would have assumed she could. I'd only ever seen her in The Shape of Water before this, which that movie is just incredible, and she does a great job. But she's also a very, very different type of character in that movie. She's very caring and lovable. This movie, not so much. So I would recommend you guys check this one out. I think it's a pretty fun theater watch. However, if you miss it in theater, if you watch it on Redbox or you stream it off Netflix or wherever it ends up, I think it'd be fine too. But I definitely recommend checking it out. I think it's worth your time. I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And if you guys are worried about this being spoiled at all, I'm going to go ahead and drop that spoiler warning. And if you want, go check the movie out, come back and finish listening to this mini cast. But here goes that spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
Boom! There it is, dropped. Your final warning to stop listening. So this woman, so the prank that I mentioned earlier that went wrong is just so cruel. It's horrible. It's downright like nefarious and unforgivable. They do a really good job at making you feel so sorry for Octavia Spencer in this movie, because she's this like sweet, meek teenager in high school, and she gets a note passed to her in class from this boy that she has a crush on, which ends up being sort of the main kid's father in the movie. And it says that, he wants to meet her in the closet after school, and she goes there, and she ends up giving him a blowjob in the closet, but it's very dark, and she can't, I guess she doesn't realize it's actually not him. It's like one of his buddies. And when she comes out of the closet, like the whole school's like waiting, and they're all pointing and laughing at her. And it's just awful. It's absolutely awful, and it serves its point in the movie. And I use the word prank. I mean, that's just the equivalent of raping someone, like fooling them into performing a sexual act on you when they do not think it's you. It's just horrible. So she grows up living in the same town. You come to find out that all these kids that are trying to find someone to buy them alcohol, which Octavia Spencer ends up doing, they all their parents pretty much went to high school with the titular Ma, and they kind of played a hand in this horrible prank. And so she sees the opportunity to exact revenge, and she absolutely does so. And she like kind of the main thing that happens at the end, the way all this goes down is she poisons the kids. She's a vet. She gets her hands on some I don't know, like animal tranquilizers, I guess, and she poisons the punch, and all these kids sort of pass out, and she locks them up. She puts like choke collars around their necks and just starts kind of torturing them while they're passed out, which is kind of crazy. And kind of around this time, or just before this time in the movie, you find out that she herself actually has a daughter who is she appears to be handicapped, but she's not actually. She looks like she's wheelchair bound. But Ma is just sort of like giving her these various tranquilizers and stuff, and telling her that she's sick and that she can't go outside, and the doctors don't understand her sickness, but she does, and she's going to help fix her. And what she's really doing, she's trying to protect her daughter from the outside world, from getting from having anything crazy happen to her like she experienced in high school. So she's got this whole like Munchausen by proxy thing going on with her daughter, telling her she's sick when she's not. And her daughter hears the kids in the basement kind of being tortured. So she runs down there and helps them out. She knocks her mom out. And I feel like this whole scene would have been like way more impactful if they didn't show like almost every single bit of torture in the trailer. Like for real, almost every single bit. She like whitewashes the African-American teenager. She sews one girl's mouth shut. She irons this kid's stomach. She tries to hang another girl. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. And at this point, the main girl's mom, she like comes to save the day basically. And Ma, her house catches on fire, and you kind of assume that she dies. But you never know. There could be room for a sequel. Also, there's a surprising amount of dick in this movie. It's actually not a ton, but there is some dick in this movie, which I did not expect. And it sort of happens in the scene where Ma's really getting her revenge on the dude that played this prank on her in high school, and she ends up giving him a blood transfusion with a bag of dog's blood. And just before that, she threatens to cut his penis off, but she ends up not doing it. So yeah, I don't know. This movie, the score is like definitely inspired by some 80s synth stuff, but it's not overbearing. It's got some pretty cool sounds going on. And it's I don't know, it's pretty enjoyable, man. I did enjoy this movie. I think probably more than I thought I would. And it's definitely worth your time. It's definitely got a cooter. If we're gonna let me drop the cooter bomb.
Cooter of the week.
We're going hunting real quick, even without Justin. I'm sorry, Justin. So it's definitely got a cooter. So Ma, she hits, I think, 3 out of the 4 cooter quadrants here. She's highly manipulative. She manipulates these kids and their parents throughout the entirety of the movie. She's definitely sexually deviant. The first time the kids come over to her basement, she pulls a gun on one of the kids and has him stripped down totally naked, and then she just starts laughing at him, which like that's sort of one of the scenes that is not believable to me in this movie, because at that point, when you're a 16-year-old kid and this strange woman pulls a gun on you and makes you get totally naked in her basement, you're not going to go back to that basement and keep partying like weekend after weekend. It's just not going to happen, or at least I sure shit wouldn't do that. But she's also she's got some like weird attire going on for sure. She wears some jumpsuits, but more often than not, she's wearing scrubs because she works at like the vet. She's not too self-important, so she doesn't really hit that cooter quadrant. And that actually, because she's not self-important, she actually doesn't have much self-esteem at all. That sort of contributes to some of her mental problems and whatnot. But the main kid's dad is absolutely a damn cooter as well. For even when he was like 16, he was a cooter for doing that crazy shit to this poor little girl in high school. Unbelievable. And as he's an adult, he's just everybody just regards him as being a huge prick, which you see a little bit of, not a ton, but apparently he's just consistently a huge prick. So we definitely got some cooters going on. The Rotten Tomatoes score here. It looks like the critics gave it a 59%. The audience score is sitting at a 68%. Me giving it a 3.5 is pretty close to the audience score there. So overall, pretty favorable, and I definitely recommend you guys check it out. But that's it for me. That's pretty much all my thoughts on Maw. Thanks for tuning in to our very first ever mini cast. Like I said, we're going to be dropping these for you guys intermittently as these new genre releases are coming out that we can't quite get to and do a proper full show on. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much. Take care, guys, until next week. And as always, everybody, please keep chilling.